I think today's era is a little bit different than the one that I experienced because I did not go on international assignments because I had a daughter. And I found out afterwards. I didn't know this because they come to the VP to recruit you. And I didn't know. And the VP is saying, no, she has a family.
Welcome to Women and Work, the show where we take an inside look at how women are overcoming our own unique challenges as we grow our careers or build a business while nurturing relationships and family. I'm Diane Mocha, founder and CEO of MomSub, the childcare app that connects you to a substitute mom. And I want you to know that work can fit your life. Our guests show you the way that they've done it. Today, I'm with Nancy Griffin. As the founder of Women, Worth, and Wellness, Nancy inspires women to balance family, health, and career while building economic independence and personal well being. Thanks for being here, Nancy.
Diane, I'm delighted. It's so much fun, and energy is everything, and you have lots of it.
Well, thank you. And, as an entrepreneur, Nancy, I see that you are focused on women and how they often link net worth and self worth, and how philanthropy and legacy planning can positively impact them, their families, and their communities. But before that, you were a private wealth advisor, and that's an industry that's been traditionally dominated by men, and it may have proved a little difficult to navigate for a woman. So I want to know from you, what specifically was the biggest challenge in your entire career because you were a woman?
Well, now basically my career so far has had three sort of distinct areas. One was I was one of the first female managers for Procter and Gamble in Canada. So that was a big, big, big deal. That was kind of my first career. So you go and you're doing well and motoring along. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, tried to leave several times. My VP, I don't think, had one entrepreneurial bone in his body. So I kept getting managed into the business with another role, more money, whatever. Finally, I'm out of here, and I ran politically. And so running politically is a whole new adventure because when you're in a corporate setting, you know what the corporate structure is. When you get into the community, everybody's voice counts. There's no structure other than you listen and you work to influence for positivity. So I had many, many, many different experiences in leadership roles in the community. Finally decided the more I did, the more there was to do. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I met this woman who recruited me into wealth management. She had been given a big bagload of money as a payout as a VP, went to get some advice on how to invest these dollars, was really, really disappointed, decided that she would be a wealth advisor herself because there was a real need for someone to look after women a whole lot better than they had been looked after. So she's the one that recruited me into wealth management. And of course, once I got there, I was sorry I hadn't been there 20 years earlier. It's just an amazing role for women, period. So anybody who's listening, who's thinking about a career change, I started in my 40s in that role, or has a daughter or even a son. Women and their wealth is a huge, huge, huge opportunity. So you get recruited by a big company. They say, okay, go get your licenses because you can't do the job unless you've got all the different licenses, and then come back. And then they do the training. But what they don't do is find clients for you. So part of the training is, okay, you got to go find some clients that you can work with. So this was in the early 90s, and that's when women really were starting to pay attention to their wealth. That's also when they were starting to pay attention to learning how to golf.
Do they go
So
hand in hand?
exactly. So this is what I did. And one of the investment groups that I worked with had a whole marketing program, really, really smart towards women. So I took their materials, hosted an event. I think I had 172 women that showed up at this golf club. Well, then you've got all these prospects to work with. So, you sit down with them. And the one thing I learned right off the bat, which should not have been a surprise, is it's very difficult for women to get to their wealth scenario because they're expected to be the nurse practitioner in their home. Like they're bogged down with looking after their kids and their parents and their in-laws and their staff and themselves. So that's when the words from my mother rang loud and clear, which was, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So that's when I built out the brand. I said, before we get to the wealth scenario, we talk about your health, because if you're not healthy, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. It ends up being a showstopper because you got to focus on that before you can move to next. But the best thing we can do is prevent those incidents from happening. So that's when I started to partner with not-for-profit health-related organizations focusing on women, one of which is the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Heart disease is the leading cause of death for women, and the symptoms for heart disease for women are quite different than they are for men. So for women to increase their awareness and knowledge to those symptoms and those differences was a priority. So I would host an event with the Heart and Stroke Foundation. I'd invite my clients, bring your friends. I would charge a nominal amount, which is a charitable donation from your tax return. And that then introduces the whole concept of enhancing your net worth by doing a charitable donation. And then, of course, Diane, as we know, if we're in a position to give or share, more often than not, we're the recipients more so than to whom we've given. So that's where the net worth and self-worth. And then, of course, here we are 31 years later, where women are earning a whole lot more, but more importantly, they're inheriting wealth from their parents, with a whole lot more to come from their spouse, assuming the spouse is a male whose longevity is not as great as the female's. So all of a sudden, women have got this incredible power opportunity in stewarding that wealth. So the Women Worth and Wellness brand is very holistic. You know, it starts with a very simple premise, but it becomes increasingly powerful over time.
Mm-hmm. And Melissa Gates, I think is her name, Bill Gates's wife, is an example of this, right?
Oh, Melinda French Gates, she's a
Melinda,
rock
yes.
star.
Thank you. Yeah.
She's a rock star. And the same thing with Mackenzie Scott.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot to unpack there. You made
Right.
a huge career shift in your 40s. You kind of spelled out all these things that you've done, which is amazing. Somebody hears that, it sounds kind of easy peasy. Well, I was just in this, work environment and I just got these promotions. But I wonder what the snags were along the way, and if there were any places along the way in your career where you felt like things were different for you as a woman than they would have been if you were a man, or if you didn't encounter that.
Well, no, the way men treat newbies is quite different in approaching men versus women. For example, this one wealth advisor that I bumped into at one point, really, really accomplished, super guy. He had just recruited a new male associate. Right off the bat, he got him on a board of an art association in the community. So right off the bat, this is something that you need to have in your profile. Men don't do that for women. So if women don't know about that and they don't say, well, this is something that I'd like to do outside the organization to get myself some leadership experience, it's not going to happen. It's really not going to happen. Now, I think today's era is a little bit different than the one that I experienced, because I did not go on international assignments because I had a daughter. And I was, I found out afterwards, I didn't know this because they come to the VP to recruit you. And I didn't know. And the VP is saying, no, she has a family. Like this is and of course, if you're in a
He didn't even
corporate
give you
setting,
the option? Didn't even
no,
present it to you? This is
no,
at Procter and Gamble?
exactly. And after the fact, this one fellow said to me, Nancy, we've been requesting you for about 3 years now. And this was just to Cincinnati. This was just to Cincinnati from Toronto.
And it's not like
And
you would have been gone overseas for years away from your kids, right? What was it, like a few weeks or a few months?
no, 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 you would go on an assignment for a year or two. So
A year or two. But could you bring your family?
oh, definitely. This is what happens with men. They relocate their whole family. And my husband was in the film industry. He ended up working in LA. So, really, you work with this family scenario to find the best way to make it all work so that this individual can go forward in a career progression mode. And so that's why at the end of the day, I'm out of here because I found that there were so many things that didn't happen for me that should have happened. And it was because I was a woman. Half the time they just don't know how to deal with you. Now, I really do think that life is different now than it was then. But to answer your question, I, when you're in a corporate setting, you really honor who your boss is. You don't want to take this person on, male or female. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry I had not been more assertive in terms of where I was at and what I was looking for and what I would like to do. And is that something that you can help me with? I was never, basically you went along to get along. And of course, you end up missing out because you've taken that passive approach.
And not all the men, and probably not many of the men, went along
Right.
to get along.
No,
They were
no,
assertive because they're not going to be called bossy or,
right.
or
Exactly.
other words that maybe are start with a B and not even as polite. And
Ex
so you found out you were denied opportunities because
Correct.
someone made a decision for you. Oh, she wouldn't do that. She's got a family. And
Right.
you were already living a non-traditional life in the sense that you were in Cincinnati, your husband was in LA, you were taking care of your daughter, and you could have been and gone and done these things and given
Right.
her an amazing experience, right?
Right. Right.
And you would have jumped at that chance.
Exactly. At least give me the opportunity. At least give me the
Right,
opportunity.
right, right.
But
And
but
so
the oppor
that's when you said, I want to put my own career in my hands and
I'm
not
out of
somebody
here. I'm out of here.
else's.
And actually, I was 39. And when you're 39, that's when you're heading into your 40s and menopause. Like it's like you're going to be 120 years old. And so I thought, you know what? I'm out of here. I've gone around in circles too many times. This is not working. I'm out of here. I'm out of And the thing that was so funny, you get a kick out of this, because the boss was away. The VP was in England visiting his relatives. And of course, when the big boss was away, we took turns being the boss. And of course, you're competing with this. So it's a male. And I was determined I'm out of here. So I gave him my resignation. It's like he's won the lottery. So he had a look like you just did, like, wow. And then it was like he had to be the boss. Are you sure? I said, I am absolutely. He couldn't get that submitted fast enough. Like, she is out of here. I have no more competition from her. And I thought, you're right. I am out of here and have a nice life.
Wow. After all those years, how many years at Procter and Gamble?
18.
18. And tell me how your life was impacted when you were working there and your daughter did
It was terrific. And
on
actually,
career,
actually,
very career oriented, and I'll find daycare and that's what I'll do? Or was there some
No, no, no.
conflict?
I had daycare and I didn't have any family close by. So I didn't have parents that were, my parents were 2 hours away and my in-laws were 2.5 hours away. So you're not going to get any help. It's like you figured out. But actually they weren't all bad men because I had this one, before we bought our home, I had this one lady that came every day when our daughter was very, very young. You had a maternity leave for 4 months and then this lady kicked in. Well, then we bought a house and we thought this woman would be really, really happy. No, she gave me her notice and she's gone. I was devastated because it's like, you can't, like, the whole bottom has fallen out. So I went to my boss and I said, I got to find daycare. He was terrific. He said, Nancy, take whatever time you need to find whatever suitable daycare you locate because you've got to have that peace of mind when you come to work. So that was a great boss. That was a super boss. I'll always remember that. So then we went to a daycare center, a local daycare center, and that was terrific. That was terrific. Because then, of course, you're in with other couples and family members who are working their way through the same challenges you are. And so that part of my existence, the worst thing that could happen then was you'd come to pick her up and they'd say she was biting today. What?
And you worry, don't get kicked out. I don't have a lot of options here. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Anyway, then it was this other little guy. He was biting her and she was biting him back.
Oh no.
But
Well,
anyway,
at least she was standing up for herself. She learned that
exactly.
from mom. So
Right.
I'm curious, because I run a childcare company, about the process you went through. So you're on this 4-month maternity leave, and how did you find the woman that came to care for your child? And why did
That's
you
a
decide to do that
that is
instead of going to daycare right away?
okay. That's a great question. And of course, we were really, really lucky because I think she had an ad in the paper. And so she came on, and of course, you leave and you've left this baby with a person that you do not know. And we didn't even have any medical requirements. Like anybody who's coming into your home to be a childcare worker, why aren't they doing something else? Maybe there's something wrong with them that you don't know about. And, we were really lucky. There were no incidents. The funniest thing was they would go out for walks, and we had a mall not close by, but it was a good, like a kilometer away. So they'd go. And then she said we always had to be back at 12 because our daughter liked to watch the Flintstones. I'm thinking, it's not our daughter who's watching the
Oh,
Flintstones.
I'm like, yeah, she's 5 months old, right?
Exactly. Anyway, we were lucky, and it was great. If you've got a childcare business, that's fabulous because getting into that community scenario was everything. I think there's a lot of risk when you leave one person caring for your small children.
Mhm.
How do you know what's going on? I mean, these days there's technology that can help you
Cameras.
see what's going on.
And a lot of
But
places to do checks, background
yeah,
checks and all that.
yeah,
And when you took your daughter to daycare, you were working a traditional 9 to 5 kind of schedule.
yes,
We help so many
exactly.
families that maybe work later into the evening or nights or weekends. So you
Yeah,
didn't have to worry about that. It
no,
wasn't hustle cut culture back then. There,
no,
there was no email following you around back then.
no, no, no. But then she went into the public school,
Mhm.
which was the French, actually the first French immersion in Toronto. And it was a half day scenario. So there was after school daycare. But if you weren't there by 6 o'clock, you could find $1 a minute. Like they meant business. And so at one point we had our niece looking after her, and she was on the bus, and the bus was she was just practically having a heart attack. Like $1 a minute. Oh my goodness, I gotta get there. I gotta. So those childcare daycare days were extremely challenging, and really stressful.
And that's great that you had a boss back then that
Yes,
understood and
yes,
had a family-friendly culture that he gave you that space. Do you
he
feel
did.
that your coworkers understood, or were your colleagues sometimes looking at you like,
No,
no.
no, they were great. And there was a
Okay.
small, I think about 6 months when she was 10 years old, so still very young. And she had to be home and call at 4 o'clock. And so my assistant at the time would often take the call and then leave me a message if I was at a meeting. So no, everybody rallied around. Everybody was really, really terrific from a childcare supportive standpoint. Really good.
And so you had one child. Do you think your career in any way influenced your decision to have one child and not more than one?
I would have had more, and I went through all the fertility programs.
Oh, I'm
And of
sorry.
course, I never wanted anybody to know. So if you're in these fertility programs, you've got to go for, now you can probably do these injections yourself, but then you had to go to a facility. And there was a whole bunch of people there. The last thing I wanted was to be in a lineup that would have me late for work because I didn't want anybody to know what I was doing. So I'm up practically in the middle of the night to get first in line too. And of course, you didn't want anybody to know. You did not want it. I mean, these days people talk about all those challenges so much more openly, which is wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Really wonderful. But,
Because
you know,
the stress of that can impact your health, which can
correct,
impact your fertility. So you want to
correct.
be as, calm as you can and not worried about hiding it, getting in line, all
Ex-
those things. Did you delay starting a family because you wanted to establish your career, kind of the lean in theory from
No,
General
no,
Samber?
no,
No.
no, not at all. I was in my mid 20s,
Okay.
and it was, you get pregnant and then it's like, oh my God, like, am I ready for this? So there was a lot of soul searching at the time, but we both my husband and I came from big families and had great parents and blah, blah, blah. So, away you go, away you go. And it
Hmm.
was terrific. I mean, no regrets there, but definitely regrets with not having more children. And at one point we thought of adopting, but then it's kind of like, well, really, You've got so many other things going on in your life. Is this something that you can accommodate? So rather than have an only child that had the focus on her a lot, we had a lot of international students who lived with us as she got older. And so that ended up being a real plus. That was wonderful because it wasn't just us and her, it was us and, an international student with her.
Wow, kind of the circle came around. Those
Right.
opportun that chance to interact with other people from other cultures must have been your destiny somehow because
It,
you had these opportunities that never got to you, but then years later you found a way to sort of introduce that into your lives. And your daughter
absolutely.
is grown, I take it, and so you've had this financial wealth advisor role and career, and then decided to make this shift to focus on women. And I understand it's because of the need, but was there something bigger? Did you feel like, if I don't do this as a woman, I don't know who else is going to? Like, what was it that called you to do that? Or did you just say, there's a huge opportunity here. Not only can I help, but I can make a lot of money. Like, what was it that really pushed you to go in that direction to focus specifically on women?
I think the latter, because your training will tell you, you choose to work with people whose lives you believe you can enhance. Because now you've got all this technical knowledge, but the key to success in this role is really connecting personally with that individual. When you go to a new doctor, they talk to you and obviously, how are you feeling and what are your priorities? But the next step is blood work. They have to get a read on exactly who you are. Same thing when you're a wealth advisor. The most important thing is you have to know who your client is. And if you've missed anything in knowing who your client is and you put them in some inappropriate investment, you can lose your job. You can lose your credentials. So it's really, really, really important that, when that blood sample is given to you, you analyze it carefully and then you bring your best professionalism forward. And so this is what happened. As I started to work with these women and talk with these women, you can see all the challenges that they're facing. And so my focus wasn't exclusively women, but certainly once I started to focus on women, a lot of great relationships were formed, and then what you do is you bring your best forward to help them out. For example, in Toronto, we have this hospital called Women's College Hospital. And so I couldn't get there fast enough to start to find out what they were doing to do events with them. I started their first golf tournament in 1994. And when you do the first golf tournament, you probably will get 32, maybe, three foursomes or four foursomes, whatever, through to 1997 when it was 144, which is a full complement. And in those days, I hate to say that because it shows your age, all these investment groups could give you some of their collateral to give out as prizes. Now you would be lucky to get a golf ball from anybody. But we had so many prizes. We had to have three separate flights. I said to my assistant at the time, we've got to give all this stuff out. Like, this is amazing stuff, which we did. So, it was terrific. And, the world was really opening up for women, both in terms of investing and learning to golf. And so we just kind of rode that wave and really had a great time doing lots of different events, bringing clients and inviting their friends and families. And it was really, really positive.
And you say the world's opening up, of course, more so every year for women
Right,
and
right,
opportunities. But I'm sure you're still meeting many women who need what you're providing because they're facing challenges that they're not sure how to overcome. And I wonder
correct.
if you have any anecdotes, any specific stories of people where you encountered somebody as a client or even in some of these events where you were like, what did you do? What advice did you get? How are you dealing with that? Let me see if I can help you. Or somebody that was just even frozen and just, oh, my $1 million has been in a bank account earning 0.05 interest for the last 10 years or
Right,
whatever.
right, right.
Like, can you share with me some of the challenges that you've helped other women overcome that maybe some of our listeners can learn from?
Okay, well, the bottom line is nobody should do their own dental work. Like, nobody should look after their own health or look after their own wealth. In both of those cases, you need a trusted advisor, a person that you can go to who is that professional, but more importantly, someone who has your back, who cares about you. And in order to care about you, you have to be completely open in terms of what your current situation is and what your challenges are and what your vulnerabilities are. So you have to own your health and own your wealth and know that you are worthy to seek proper advice. And sometimes if people are already working with somebody and they want more, you've outgrown that advisor. But at that moment in time, you probably have gotten to know them as a special friend, and that makes it really difficult. But to get to a higher level, you may need to find somebody else to work with. So all of these different situations are really challenges along the way. But the most important thing is that you need to remember that you are the number one asset. And so it's up to you to seek out proper health advice and proper wealth advice. The other tip that I give people is if you've got a complete wealth plan, make sure it includes anticipating health related challenges, because a wealth plan isn't just your investment and retirement portfolio only. It's also along the way anticipating a critical illness, a disability, a premature death, all those different scenarios. And a really, really good wealth advisor will go through the what ifs with you and then present some options. You make the final decision. But having that sophisticated awareness of everything that should be in place is really important.
Any specific challenges that you can think of a particular person that you encountered that you were surprised by, or that you maybe modeled some future approach or future offering based on the fact that you encountered something, from this person that you were like, oh, I didn't even realize people were making this mistake. Anything specific?
Okay, I'll flip it around to a positive scenario.
Sure.
We had a really good friend visiting us. She's in her late 70s. She spends most of her time away. She has a wealth advisor who I know. I know her well. She came and stayed with us a couple of months ago, and she said, Nancy, I've got a Zoom schedule with my guy, and I'd really like you to listen in. He won't know you're there, but I would really like that second opinion from a distance. Okay. So I'm sitting, it's live. They're back and forth. And, she's away. She does not want to worry about when the markets go up. Should I be concerned? Should I call somebody? And we know the markets are, over the top. Everybody's getting anxious. We know that there have been some dips. And it's like, Anyway, he said, okay, this is how I'm running your portfolio. At any given moment in time, you can be rest assured that I've set aside 3 years worth of monthlies for you. And this is ongoing. So on an ongoing basis, you're covered for 3 years. And he said, your portfolio has achieved some goals that we set out. So I'm taking some profits and I'm reinvesting them here. And he tells her the specific ones that he's taken profits from and the specific ones that she is now going to be invested in. And we know that people, when they have casual conversation, especially retirees, like to talk about, well, I own this and my guy, and so he was smart in giving her those specifics, not just I've taken 10% and I've taken that and whatever. He's given her specifics. He then said, I know now and again you like to take a lump sum out, and that's okay. I've kept that in mind. Is there anything in particular that you need right now? She said, as a matter of fact, thanks for asking. And yes, I do. Okay, this is where we're going to take it from, and blah, blah, blah. So, this all goes on. It's probably a 20-minute back and forth. So everybody's happy. Then they start to talk about the weather and, what are your plans from here? At which point I declared myself and I said, that was absolutely exceptional, because she goes away feeling very positive, knowing she can sleep at night, knowing she doesn't need to worry. And he, as the wealth advisor, has a whole level of confidence that she understands how he is looking after her. So that's my perfect example of what a wealth advisor is all about.
Mhm. People
And
sometimes have an impression, though, that there's a commission that they're earning to steer the investments to certain categories or companies. And so how do you counter that fear?
Well, again, that's the professional. This is who you've recruited to look after you. And do you really care how much money this person is earning if they're serving you exceptionally well? Your job is not to lower the microscope on what their income is. Your job is to satisfy yourself that given your wealth and given your priorities, this person is serving you exceptionally well.
Mhm. And what would you say to women about what they should do when they're in their younger years and maybe they feel like, they're not at that level yet of needing a wealth advisor. They don't.
Start working with somebody. And
Mm.
just about everybody has a bank account somewhere. And maybe it's virtual, but even if it's virtual, you can reach out and say, I would like to get started with an investment portfolio. I'd like to get started with a wealth plan. I'm a certified financial planner, and what you can do is just Google CFP near me and find out, what do I need to be focused on? I'm 22 years old. I've started my first job. Help me understand what I should be focused on, and then expect that person to give you their best advice. If you don't like them or their advice, then go find somebody else. But work with somebody. That's my point about don't do your own dental care. And don't think that you're not ready for all of this, because you are. As soon as you start to earn money, you're ready for it. And maybe you don't have a whole lot to invest right now, but having a frame of reference that gives you some ideas on what you will do when you do get there is really important.
Do women tend to wait more to be ready than men and feel like,
Yes,
oh, and why do you think that is? And how can we as a society and as women overcome that?
they don't make wealth a priority. They don't own their wealth. They don't own their wealth. And often they think they don't know enough and they don't want to ask questions because then that indicates what they don't know. Well, so what? So what? Start asking questions and start looking after yourself and owning your wealth scenario.
Is it because, even now, there's still stories about, in school, the boys are assumed to be better at math and men are focused on being the provider and focused on handling the finances. And, I mean, back in the day, women would lose a spouse and wouldn't even know how to write a check. And
Right.
thankfully nowadays women are handling some of those things, but there's still a societal mindset. And I wonder, does this put women behind? Does it put them at a disadvantage? And what can we do to better educate the young women out there that this is something that should demand their attention?
Exactly. And women are the ones who can make that change. Choose financial literacy sooner rather than later. And women are smart. Women are very capable. It's just a matter of what you're allowing to happen to you and what you're choosing to ignore or choosing to step up to. And my favorite expression is for women to just step out and step up and just own it. Like own it. Own it.
Own it. I love that. And
Mhm.
I really love all of the insights that you shared with us today, Nancy. If you were inspired by Nancy's story today, remember to share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe to meet our next amazing guest. Now, if you want to invest in a solution to the childcare crisis, we've got an investment for you. Check out MomSub's equity crowdfunding campaign at momsub.com/invest or connect with MomSub on our social media pages. Many women don't know that investment in small companies that could grow large is not limited just to accredited investors or Silicon Valley VCs, that you can do this now through equity crowdfunding. And this is what MomSub is offering to help working women get involved in a company that they believe in and they see the potential for growth. So we invite you to check out that campaign and all of our social media pages. And don't forget, that's MomSub, like a substitute mom. Remember, your career, your choices, and your success are yours to define. So
Right.
keep pushing boundaries and spreading your love and encouragement to other women who need it.